have to scare you guys? I have to scare you, shock you, gross you out. It's like a long list of things I have to do to get all those reactions that you practice for, but we'll do our best.
It'll happen. So I would love to start off by asking some questions about Stranger Things.
That makes sense.
Yeah. What has your experience been like being a part of that series?
Oh God, I could talk for the whole hour about that, but I guess I would say I was so intimidated when I got cast because I love TV. And on my favorite shows, sometimes when they bring in new characters and they take you away from time with your original characters that you first fell in love with, I can get kind of annoyed. I'll be like, oh, why am I, having to look at Jackson Avery? I watched this show from Meredith Grey, But then sometimes, particularly in Jackson's case, one falls in love with new characters, and so I was, aspiring to want to be a positive addition to the show, because the show already worked without me, So that was intimidating, and it's also just my first time on TV. And, on television, you don't get the whole season the way you get a whole script for a movie. You get it episode by episode. So I didn't really know where my character was going to end up. And normally, when I have a part, I'm like, okay, well, if I have to end here, then this moment needs to be like this. And then I'll build a secret in here, and so that the end feels really satisfying. But I had no idea what the end was. So it was, kind of felt a little like wandering around in the dark. But, everyone was so warm and welcoming. Working with Joe Keery is pretty much like the easiest job in the world for an actor. Totally agree. He makes everything you do funnier. He makes you funnier, makes you better. He's just a great scene partner. So that made it really easy. And then, season 4, there was the pandemic. So that was really intense, but in some ways, we all had to quarantine with each other, so there was a big bonding energy, and I think that even though I wasn't there from the beginning, everyone having to be bonded by that quarantine period and doing the pandemic together made me feel like more of an original, and that was really nice. And now season 5, it's like we're seniors, and it's really fun and really sad, and it's awesome to be working on it now. Okay, brace yourself. I'm extremely long-winded, but I'll do my best to keep it concise.
Speaking of bonds, I think one of the most exciting things, one of the most fun things to watch in Stranger Things was kind of this older brother, younger brother mentorship that happened between Steve and Dustin.
Oh my God, me too. It's my favorite.
And so my question is, if Robin were to take on a mentorship kind of older sister role as she interacts more with like the younger actors and the younger characters, who do you think she would gel the most with?
Have you read the new scripts? Where's that question coming from? That's whispering. It's very wild. I don't know. I think that she could gel with a lot of characters really well. I am personally really close friends with Sadie Sink. And so I imagine that she might gel very well with that. But I think there's a variety of characters who she might gel well with, and we will see what happens next season. But you hit the nail on the head there.
Is there any particular scene you filmed from Stranger Things that has stood out to you? And this can be in any way, whether it was a scene that you really enjoyed filming, or maybe it was a scene that you found particularly challenging. Maybe it was a scene that you couldn't stop giggling at.
Okay, well, there's a joke amongst actors that your worst nightmare is if you got a script in the mail and the title of the movie was Night of the Living Swamp Children, because the worst experience shooting is at night, dealing with kids and kids' hours, and gross stuff outside and when it's cold. So I'm saying that to give context to what my favorite scene is, because it's indoors during the day. and just Joe and I. My favorite scene to film was like, sorry, I didn't do a good job expressing myself. I've loved all the scenes, but this one was particularly also comfortable. We shot a oneer in the video store at the beginning of season 4, and it's kind of like Joe and I are weaving through the aisles of the DVDs and pulling out DVDs and talking to each other. And I love acting in one shot because it allows it to be more like a play almost. You know, you have control of your whole performance. And so that was extremely fun because we had to be, you know, right on target with our dialogue and playing off of each other and being funny. And then we kind of end up, you know, leaned against this movie poster. And that was my favorite day. I loved shooting in that video store. I love the scenes that happened in there. And I love working with Joe during the daytime.
And then, you know, it's kind of, it's common, you know, for actors when they're going out and reading for roles that, you know, there's not that much information to go off of. And so when you read for Robin, did you have an idea of, you know, because Robin's obviously very close in character with Steve, and that's who a lot of the scene work will be with. Did you know that this character would interact a lot with Steve, or was it just like, hey, this is a new character?
I mean, I think that the reference that I got was Ali Sheedy from The Breakfast Club. And then she was kind of dour and sarcastic and almost a little bit goth. And that's what I did in an audition. And then it was with Steve. And then I got to do a chemistry read with Joe. And that was when I was like, oh, no, I like really want to do this. Because even in the audition, he just like, helped me be better, you know? And then when you're chemistry reading with another actor who already has the part, it can be really nerve-wracking, but he wasn't intimidating, he was just wonderful. And so that was awesome. And then the character, this is more than the question you asked, but then the character, I started to notice her changing throughout the season and becoming a little bit less dour and a little bit less goth. And I realized, and I was like, guys, I'm really confused. Like, I remember the character description, and it seems like, I don't know, like, you're not writing her that way anymore. And they were like, yeah, well, now we know you. And so they really wrote, you know, they really write their characters for their actors. And the more they learn about you as an actor, the more they set you up to succeed. And I think that that's a especially wonderful thing when you're working on television, because when you're doing a movie, you know, if you have to like walk with a limp and do an accent and change your posture, that's great, and you can keep it up for a while. But it's nice that since I've been doing this show since I was 19 years old, that I get to play a character that's pretty much, I can show up on set like me, and I don't need to affect a huge energy shift to myself, you know? So I'm really glad that they write that way.
That they write for you to play your character. Would you say it's kind of like a good partnership too, in that like you feel like you can go in and be like, hey, I think like do this, or hey, like I kind of maybe want to try this direction.
Sometimes I go to them and I'm like, hey, I say totally 6 times in this line, are you sure? And sometimes they say yes, I'm totally sure, and sometimes they say, how about 3? And I say, sounds good. But for the most part, there's no idea. I mean, the brothers, this is their dream and their world, and they have such vision for all of these characters, and as much as they, you know, what I think they get inspired by with their actors is like, their speaking pattern, you know, the way that they string words together in sentences, and the way that the way their energy feels, and how they already improvise. But I think for the most part, you know, the core structure and the action of the show is all like it's been living in those brothers their whole life, you know, and they know the show better than anybody, and I don't think I have any decent action ideas. I really think Robin should be primarily responsible for defeating all the Demogorgons and like I have come to them with that idea, but it's just a completely economical idea.
But I think that would be incredibly epic if we could get that scene.
Yeah, that's not really kind of ask for.
And so, you have to mention the brothers, and, nobody knows. Nobody knows what's in store for this next season. However, completely...
Some people know.
Some people might know. I'm saying... but, very, very speculatory, very in our heads. If it were up to you, how would you like to see Robin's story wrapped up?
I hope she survives. I hope she survives, and I hope for all of the characters that they, that those who survive get to maintain their friendships and get the frick out of that town. I mean, that town has bad vibes, and it seems like the rest of the world's okay. So it seems like they should, just branch out a little bit, go on a Euro trip, maybe. But anyway, that's kind of what I hope. But really, I just hope that the brothers get to have the resolution and the finale that they've always dreamed about, and that we, as a cast, kind of rise to that challenge. Other than that, I think that's it.
Has gone on for many seasons now. I feel like each season the stakes have gone much higher and higher, and then obviously so much happened in season 4. What was your reaction and your experience like seeing all those moments, like reading the scripts, filming them, and then finally seeing it all together?
It's amazing because the seasons are extremely long. Like if you hold those scripts in your hand, each one is like, 100 pages, 110 pages, 98 pages, and most movies are around that length. So it's kind of like, doing 8 movies in a year. And it's such an ensemble cast that, I probably read the whole show all the way through 2 or 3 times. But, and then I kind of mostly focus on my scenes as I'm memorizing them and, tracking out my character's journey. But it's hard to hold all of the different storylines in your head. Maybe even some of you feel that way when you're watching. Maybe not. But it's hard to hold all of the stories in your head, so you kind of lose them and forget them, and then when you go to watch it, the most fun thing is like not your own stuff, but is seeing your peers and the work that they did, and how incredible it is. I mean, I never went to Lithuania, which is where they shot the Russia stuff with David, to get to see his work in that prison, and like I was so amazed by it, and just getting to watch my fellow actors play and excel, and so that's really what's the most fun about it. The general plot I kind of know, but so I watched for the performances.
And then you mentioned Lithuania. This project can take you anywhere. Would you say that was like the coolest place you ever got to travel to for a project, or there?
Well, I didn't go. Like I said, that's what we I didn't go to the Russian prison. The coolest place I've ever traveled to for work. It was probably Ireland. I did my first job in Dublin, Ireland, and that was really cool.
And now I would like to go into another one of your projects that you worked on, which was Do Revenge. Yeah. So in case anyone in the audience hasn't seen it, I'm not going to spoil anything, but there might be some spoilers that we cover your ears just a little bit. So in that movie, and again, without giving away too many spoilers, there is a twist. There is a twist in this movie. And regarding twists in movies, because earlier you had mentioned the kind of difference between, film and TV, where you don't get the entire script, you don't know what's going to happen. Do you as an actor like to know twists ahead of time so maybe it can help you approach the character as you're filming? Or do you like to be completely surprised?
I think you have to know. I mean, or I guess I have to know. I don't mean to assume. But on this job in particular, what we did, now basically my best friend in the world is the person who directed this movie, Jennifer Caitlin Robinson. And what we did, is I just really trusted her, was kind of commit to an aspect of building my performance in the edit, which I think is often used as an insult to people, like, oh, we had to build our performance in the edit, like they sucked. But what we did was always do 2 different versions of each scene. One version was where I was giving a lot of hints about the twist, like my behavior was a little suspicious. I, kind of had a bad energy, bad vibes, like coldness to me. And then we would do another take where I did it as though I had no idea what the twist was, there was no twist, and I was just completely open to the situation and totally present and had no ulterior motive. And I think that why we did that is because we really wanted to rely on audiences. We did a lot of test screenings for that movie, and we basically wanted people to be surprised that the twist came, but to feel like when they watched the movie a second time, they were like, oh, there's a hint, and there was a hint, and I should have known in that moment. And I think that we couldn't really know how to do that until we could get in front of people, so I wanted to make sure that my director had options, like, oh, we need to put in more hints. People were too surprised, or, oh, everyone guessed that it was coming, we need to neutralize it a little bit. So that's kind of how we worked on that twist. Next time I do one, maybe I'll do a different style, but that was how we did this.
I really like how you mentioned all of that and how the thought behind all the takes, the thought behind trying to craft all these different ways to think for when it eventually comes to the ending. It was very insightful. I loved hearing that.
Well, thank you.
So while having been aired at film festivals, your film Wildcat is set for a limited release coming up this year. Can you speak to your experience working on that project and how you approached the role?
Totally. I mean, first of all, I'll say I don't want to bore you guys too much about this because it's a movie that you haven't seen yet. And also, I'm not sure if the kind of nerd that this movie is for intersects with the kinds of nerds here. It may or may not. It's kind of a bookworm nerd stuff. Sorry, it's my first time. But what I'll say is my experience of it was awesome. Since I was 15 years old, I wanted to make this movie. Why? I don't know. I don't know. But I wanted to make a movie about, I read this book called Flannery O'Connor's Prayer Journal. And it was really inspiring to me because Flannery O'Connor was a writer that my English teacher had given me to read. And I read her journal from when she was a young woman, and she was so self-hating and had so much self-doubt. And I was like, wow, somebody who someday could get taught in an English class could have as much self-doubt as I do. That's so inspiring to me, And so I loved her language, and I just loved the way that she talked. And my dad, who directed the film, had just gone through a kind of epiphany that he'd been afraid that he hadn't dedicated enough of his life to his spiritual development, that he'd kind of stunted in his spiritual development in his early 20s. And then he had this epiphany that actually his commitment to the arts and to movies and the love of movies and going to the movies was kind of like going to church, it was kind of his spiritual practice. And so we wanted to make a movie about the intersection between art, faith, imagination, and reality. And that a love of the arts, a love of movies is a kind of faith. A love of books and movies is a kind of faith and a kind of practice. And so we made this movie together.
And I'd like to talk about another movie that you were in recently, which is Asteroid City.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear about your experience working on that film.
Oh, it was the best. It was the best ever, okay? It was just the best ever. If anyone ever asks you to go to Spain to be in a Wes Anderson movie, say it. It was the best. It was still kind of edging on the end of the pandemic, so we all had to be kind of quarantined in the same hotel. and the set was like a golf cart ride away from the hotel, and everybody ate dinner together every night. I mean, you couldn't have dragged me out of there. I loved it so much. I actually wrapped the movie 3 times, because every day I would wrap, I would be so disappointed. I'd be like, oh God, I just want to be in more scenes. And in this hotel, there were these little balconies, and Wes would look over this little balcony and go, Maya, did you wrap today? And I would say, yeah, I did, I'm done, I'm leaving tomorrow. And he'd go, do you want to leave? And I would say, no. He'd say, do you have to leave? And I'd say, no. He'd go, okay, give me 15 minutes. And he would go into his room and write me into another scene. So if you look in that movie, there's a lot of like, I played like an actor in the scenes in the afterworld named Lucretia Schaefer in the, like, and I wasn't supposed to do that. I just didn't think you were in me. And then I'm an extra in like the scene where Adrian Brody is like walking by to talk to his wife, and I'm kind of just like a model standing there. I didn't have to do that either. I just wanted to be there. So it was truly the best experience.
Projects that you have acted in and started, but I wanted to go and talk a little bit more about music.
You guys are so supportive.
You know, you released 2, I believe, soon to be 3 albums as a music artist, and so I would love to hear about what you enjoy most about acting, and then also being able to be a musician.
I feel like they really feed each other. I mean, I don't think I would have 3 albums if it wasn't for Stranger Things, because not because of the platform, though that helps a lot, but because of the time. And the making of Stranger Things takes about a year to make. And like I said, you're kind of in a third of the scenes because of all the different groups that have to interact with each other. So there's a lot of time on hold in Atlanta waiting for your turn. And it was that time, and it was the time before I got the part on Stranger Things. It was kind of a year in between my first part I ever got, which was Little Women in a BBC miniseries, and Stranger Things. And that year, and I am a busy body. I like always want to be making things. Like if I'm not acting in something, I'm writing music. If I'm not writing music, I'm like doing watercolor or like taking a pottery class, or like I'm trying to learn to knit. I'm like a total maniac in that way, which I can tell a lot of you are by looking at all of your beautiful handmade costumes and like clear creativity that I've seen while I've been here. And so anyway, it was kind of in that time, that waiting time, where I was like, oh, wow, the problem with being an actor is that I need permission. Like I can go to all these auditions, and I do see the audition experience as an opportunity to practice your craft. But it still like usually takes about 15 minutes to an hour, and you go in and you practice writing, and you do your audition, and then you're like, wow, okay, I guess that's done. What am I going to do the rest of this day, you know? And so it's been amazing to have had this time where I could write all this music and do this, and then this platform where I could express myself, put it out. It's something that I never expected to do professionally in my life. And I think it's really important to always have a non-professional creative outlet if you're an artist, because as soon as the industry gets involved with your creativity, things start to change. And thoughts start to get into your head that you don't want there, right? Like when you're just acting in a school play with your friends, you're not wondering if you're holding your chin in just the right way, you know, or like if this is going to be good for your career, or if it's going to look good on your resume, or whatever, you know. And you're just doing it because you love it. And then you work for a while, and even though that love is so deeply instilled, there are all these other voices, you know, that start to come in. Be pretty, be famous, be good, keep working, you know. And so you need something pure to work outside of that. So for a while, that was music. But then a lot of people started listening to my songs, and now that's gone too. And so now I watercolor a lot. But I also love, just love making music and writing the songs, and I especially love the community that it brings around you and touring and like getting to go to shows. This is my first one, but my first experience kind of meeting Stranger Things fans and meeting people was really touring my album. And it was so moving to me to get to meet people who watch the show and who listen to the music and who cared. And it's just been such a beautiful aspect of my life. So I'm so excited to put out this new record, and I hope you guys like it. But it's good music.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I had read that you'd written the chorus for your song Dark a few years ago, actually.
That's true. While I was filming Stranger Things, while we were filming season 4.
So with that being said, I would love to know the process of you creating your music and how it all comes together.
It's always different, I bet, there are these moments of rush where like you have a feeling or an idea. I heard Miley Cyrus describe it as like capturing a firefly. And I've been quoting her about that like every day this week. I love it. Like sometimes this like feeling comes, you see this firefly, you can just write it, but it's not all good, And then you kind of go back and you look at it and you see what part was the purest feeling was expressed. And you're like, okay, I'm gonna save that. And then you wait for another firefly to come and then try to attach more pieces, and you kind of do this slow, at least I do, this sort of slow collection of things you think are worth saying. I try not to do anything that I don't think is worth saying, at least to me. So it's kind of a slow process of collecting. Like in that song, I collected that chorus during that period of time, but I got rid of the verses. I think the verse was originally, I don't want to toughen up, I don't want to harden, I would rather be a slug than a snail. So I got rid of that. And left the chorus as it was, and then kind of built the rest of the song around it. So thanks for asking.
And then, because you're collecting these pieces, and these pieces can come to you, yesterday, they can come to you years from now. Is there any moment where maybe you were in a situation where you're like, oh, I can't really write something down, but you're like, I have this thought, and I want to remember it for later?
Every night before I go to bed, you're like, well, I fall asleep, you're like, oh, I've got a great idea. I'll remember it in the morning. But I'm always writing, like I'm always, like on the back of my sides, they give out to you, speaking, on my sides, there are these like little lines for the day at work, where it's like what you're going to have to say that day. Hopefully you already know them before you come in, but some people memorize off their sides in the trailer. I've done it before, shamefully. But on the back of them, because usually I am off book, I like to write on them. So I always have a pen with me. Rarely am I in a situation where it's impossible to write down an idea, especially with our stupid phones that we carry around. It's usually you have them somewhere.
And is there any song that you like performing the most, or a song that you feel is the most personal for you?
Yeah, they're different answers, because something really cool happens that I never thought would happen in my life, which is if you find people if people really take to one of your songs, it becomes not even yours anymore, right? Like it becomes your community's, and it becomes the most fun to perform by far because your audience is having the most fun. In terms of performing, for me at least, I am having fun if you are having fun. And I am not if you are not. And so that's kind of, so I have this song out called Dress, and that song is my most popular song, and people have written me a lot of letters about it, and I think it struck a chord with some people, and when I get to be in a room with those people and sing that song, that's my favorite.
Many connecting music and Stranger Things, actually. Many of your Stranger Things co-stars are also musicians.
It's crazy! It's the time thing, I'm telling you. It's the 3 storylines, and everyone has this extra time. And so they're all making, I swear to God, that's it. Maybe they won't tell you the truth, but I will.
Have you ever talked about or considered potentially collaborating with some of them in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to. You know, I think that there's a thing that happens when you're on something as big as Stranger Things is. It's that where any collaboration you would do could be overshadowed by that, or make it just all about that. And I think that everyone is kind of doing their music projects as a way to like carve out a little bit of their individuality or something, and to be like, hey, I know I'm Robin, but I'm also Maya, and like this is what Maya thinks, or what, and you know, and so I think that if the fact that we're like not all a band already, that's maybe why. It's because everyone's trying to, you know, carve out their own little individuality, but I would love to work with Finn and Joe, and we talk about making music all the time, and play together sometimes, so it's we listen to each other's stuff, it's really fun.
And then I will be opening it up to fan questions in just a moment. So I will answer one last question and then we will open up to the audience. But for anyone who was not here earlier and heard the announcement, we're doing fan questions a little bit differently this year. So right behind me, you will see a QR code that you can scan, and you will then be able to submit your questions digitally, and I will be able to get them up here. So while we are, while we are going with this last question, please feel free to submit your questions, and then we'll get right into fan questions.
Awesome.
So the last question I have, and I think we've covered so much of what you do, from acting to music to all the art and all of your creativity. So you could have maybe already touched on this question just a little bit, but are there any upcoming projects you are working on personally, professionally, that you are able to talk about, of course, that you would like to share?
Oh my gosh, well, Inside Out.
Yeah!
This summer, and I'm so excited for you guys to see it. In the first Inside Out movie changed my life. I don't know if you guys felt this way, but I felt like it facilitated these conversations and knowing how to talk to people differently, and even seeing your own emotions differently, and being like, hey, actually, like, anger's kind of got the wheel right now. Maybe keep me, you know, maybe give me 5 feet space or whatever, or like, you know, it's just this way of seeing your feelings not as you, but as these feelings that are maneuvering around your mind that you can kind of attempt to control sometimes, and be like, okay, wow, I'm not angry, anger's got the wheel. Let me take some deep breaths and see if I can, you know, bring joy back or whatever. And that's so cool. And I don't know how I've gotten so lucky to get to join things in there like later that I love so much, like Stranger Things and Inside Out. It's so cool to be that lucky. But I'm so excited for the second one. I am so excited for you guys to meet Anxiety. She rules. As all of the characters. And I think you're really gonna like it. I got to see the first 40 minutes. I haven't seen the whole movie either, but I got to see the first 40 minutes, and I can promise you the first 40 minutes, excellent. Just excellent. I hope you like it, and I can't wait for people to see that. I think it's gonna be awesome.
So for our first question, we have, what is your favorite behind-the-scenes moment of Stranger Things?
Let me think. There are so many. Well,
we could talk about that.
This is more broad, but my favorite thing to do behind the scenes is usually like somebody brings board games, and we sit and wait for the camera setups to change, and we all sit together, and we have our respective coffees and Diet Cokes and candy. There's so much candy on set. It's so bad. And we play games. These days we can play bananagrams, but that's kind of, it makes it feel like camp or school or something. It's like we get our little breaks and we just play together. And I think it really fuels the scenes and the work, because it makes everybody, you touch back into your gratitude and with your joy. And I think that's an extremely important place to come from as an actor. And it can sometimes get lost in the night shoots or the exhaustion of fatigue, whatever. But really it's just gratitude and joy. And sometimes bananagrams is what you need to get there. So those are probably my favorite memories, all playing these games together. But I don't know, there's always just I mean, the hilarity that ensues around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning when you're in the woods and like they're raining down those sort of upside down, you know, air sparkles, and so you're like kind of inhaling air sparkles, and it's 3 in the morning and you're like just griping with your friends, and it's a very, very happy memory in retrospect, always.
Stranger Things that has a relation to like the tabletop space.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I was going to ask, in earlier seasons, maybe when you were filming or other days when you were filming, are there other games? Do you play more intricate games? Is there a tabletop game going on?
There's a tabletop game, but I guess that's not, no, maybe I don't know what a tabletop game is. We play games on a table. Because we usually only have these kind of 5 to 10 minute breaks. So normally when we play games together, they're just always kind of quickies, like Cards Against Humanity, or Bananagrams, or a Scrabble game we can keep coming back to, or so it's mostly games that kind of can play that Uno, you know, fast ones, or weird little actor games. But like word association, you know, that like not association, but where you try to get to the same word, like we go 1, 2, 3, and first say the first word that comes to our head.
Yeah.
You know this one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I like that one. I like word games, but yeah.
Is anyone like super competitive?
Me. I mean, yeah, especially at night, on night shoots, I get really competitive, and it's very weird, but Noah can be particularly competitive, and sometimes Gabe, but really I would say, like, Noah and I are people, I mean, everyone's competitive, maybe other people are just better at games, but Noah and I get, like, actively frustrated, like, oh, how did this happen? How did you do that? How did you do that so fast? That's what I get like. Or I get really mad at people when I think people are cheating. That's like, no, you can't do that. That's not how you play. It's not the rules.
How did you decide which songs went on Chaos Angel and which ones didn't get cut?
Just continuity. You know, I think it wasn't. I'm so excited to someday maybe release the songs that didn't make it on the record. It was really just trying to make a really cohesive record, and that was my goal with this album, was to make a record that from start to finish you could like listen to and felt like one story, one character, one creature, and it kind of kept you going all the way through. You know, it had pace and energy, and so kind of just anything that slowed it down or seemed outside of the world didn't end up on the record, but they will see the light of day.
Genre would you want your next project to be? And I kind of want to make it 2 parts. So like what genre for acting projects, and then what genre for your music if you want to experiment differently?
Interesting. I guess I rarely think about genre. Don't boo. I mostly think about writing and my collaborators. My main goal is just to work with people who are passionate about what they're making. And I know you think that everyone in the arts is passionate about what they're making, but they're not always. And so like people who really care, like, this project is my baby, is like what I want to hear a director say. You know, like this, I've been working on things to be made for ages, and that this is what it means to me. And if you say those things to me, I'll kind of do anything. You know, I like to be a character in someone else's dream, and so it's important that it is their dream. So I don't really care about genre that much, just quality of writing and the joy of my collaborators. But I will say, I would really like to do a romantic comedy. I think it's a dying genre.
We need more romantic comedies, for sure.
Like, how many times do we all watch Harry Met Salad? Like, we've seen it a lot of times, and I want a new one. And I feel like they don't make them that many, and they don't really seem to make them that well anymore either. So I really want to start a rom-com renaissance. So I really want that, and I don't know. That's one of my main goals, and then just my same old goals of great writing and great people. I mean, I'd love to do something in the fantasy world also. That's actually I have some plans to do that, but yeah.
What is your favorite song at the moment? And it doesn't specify if it's your song, like a favorite song that you've written. So I'll say, what's your favorite song of yours right now? And then maybe what's your favorite
Don't make me answer my own favorite song. Just let me say what music I like. My favorite song right now that I'm playing the most is from the Georgia Post. I mean, it's just where I would try to say something other than Taylor, but we're so close to the album. I don't know if I'm gonna lie to you people. So that's probably my favorite song right now. I'm trying to think if I've been listening to anything else. No.
What is the most memorable audition you went on, would you say?
My most memorable audition is for a movie that I did with the part. And I went to an audition with a director I admired so much in the lobby of a hotel. And it was kind of right after the Me Too movement had happened. So people were like really scared of meeting like me alone. I was like just starting my career and people were kind of scared to like meet me alone, which will come into the story. Because like we were in this hotel room with coffee, it was great. In the part I had to sing and I didn't have any music out at the time. And so the director wanted to hear me sing. And I was like, oh, well, how about we just like do a room here? Let's just go upstairs and I can sing for you upstairs. And he was like, no. Why don't you sing for me just here? And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, just sing here. And I was like, in the lobby of this hotel? And he was like, we could go outside on the street. And so I sang for him in the lobby of a hotel. And people walked by and looked and gave me a weird look. I was in that Nico song that I can't remember the name of. Someone else knows the name, the most famous Nico song. Yeah, thank you. Chelsea Rowe. So yeah, that's my weirdest audition experience.
And then between all of your projects, you have been able to wear some fabulous outfits. So this question asks, what was your favorite costume you've ever worn?
Would you please stand up?
You mentioned that this is your first convention, and so this question asks, like, what is your favorite part about going to conventions? So I guess, like, what has been
my favorite part?
Yeah.
I just meeting you guys. I mean, I think, you know, especially the world is so chaotic and painful right now on like a large scale, you know, and maybe it's always been, maybe it's particularly now, who knows, really, it's impossible to imagine yourself at any other time. But sometimes when you are in the arts, there can be this feeling that you're like not doing anything that matters. You know, you're like, just, I'm just gonna go to work and play pretend while the world explodes. Like, okay. And but being here, getting to meet you guys and see that it at least matters in some way. You know, that it matters to you enough to come dressed up and not even just that my work matters, that like all of it matters. You know, to see everyone in these Star Wars costumes and just to feel, because you hear about it, but to feel that it does make an impact on people's lives is just like, I don't know, it's so meaningful and makes a person feel like they're not like, you know, just a selfish little monster who likes to play pretend and put on pretty clothes. You know, so thank you.
What was it like working on Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur?
Oh, what was it like recording them? So fun. I mean, I love doing voice work. It's pajamas. It's in the studio. You have a lot of control to do multiple different takes and to make sure you nail it. And to, you know, get into the character. And there's a funny thing when you're acting in a movie where you kind of don't want your face to move that much. Like you want to get a lot of emotion in your voice, and sometimes it's appropriate to have a big face. But sometimes you kind of want the camera so close that you just have to put your smile like in the muscles of your cheeks. You like almost use the subtlest smile. But when you're doing animation, you get to be huge, you know? Like you get, and you don't have to worry if you're doing it everywhere you scowl because you're mad, you know? It's like really theatrical actually, and playful, and animated, and for lack of a better word, or that's the perfect word. That's extremely fun, and I love doing that on Moon Girl, and I love doing it anytime I get to do voice work. It's like some of my favorite work that I do.
Speaking of recording and voice acting, obviously the difference with it being more like big and exaggerated. Obviously, like when you're recording, sometimes you have to do like big, exaggerated things, like do silly things in order to really capture what is happening either on the script or on the screen. Is there any time when you were recording something that you recall where you were just doing something absolutely like ridiculous or like extraordinarily big that like left the room with laughter?
Well, Inside Out, we all had a lot of laughs, and a lot of cries too. But I feel like the silliest things I've had to do in that situation are like more like things when you do ADR, which is additional audio recording for film. Because sometimes, you know, like a plane will fly overhead and they didn't hear what you said. And so the silliest things I've had to do were like make out with my hand talking so that they could ADR the line. You know, like I was had to kiss someone in a movie, but then we were like talking while we were kissing, and I had like kiss while I talked. It was ridiculous and all that. But that's kind of the silly stuff. Is like you have to stand there and talking in front of people to make yourself winded so that you sound as winded as you did in the scene, or you know, to try to recreate that kind of very physical moment in, you know, a year later in a small air-conditioned room.
Were you a fan of Stranger Things before you ended up on the show?
Totally. I wasn't a fan like right away with the first wave because I was in drama school at the time and I had zero time. But my mom and brother were, and then they kind of caught me up the next year, and then I think it was around, like, I don't know, I became a huge fan, and then I got the call to go and audition. It was like, oh. So I wasn't like in the first wave of fans and like watched the first week it hit Netflix, but I got to it kind of like a year later and was like, whoa, I have been missing out. I should watch this. This is good.
And again, we talked a lot about a lot of the creativity, a lot of the creative things that you do. And so this question asks, what do you do on your free time after filming or after shoot? Like something you do just to really decompress for fun.
I watch TV and movies. I go to the movies a lot. I love to go to the movies. Everyone has to go back to the movies. It's so sad. It's so sad when you go to the movie theater and it's just you and like your one friend, and if you notice these days they're almost like not even turning up the volume that much. Like they're like, it's often really quiet and it's just you and your one friend. You can barely hear the screen, and like go up to the concession guy and you're like, hey, can you turn up the volume in my theater? I'm sorry. So we all have to go back so that they turn up the volume. It's so important. It's so important to like our ability to make art movies and cool stuff, and it's so important. So I try to go as much as I can. And then I watch TV. I watercolor. I write songs. I go for walks. I exercise, and I don't know. It's pretty normal. I cook. I really like to cook and go out to fun restaurants and try new weird stuff. I don't know, pretty normal stuff, I feel like.
Do you have like a go-to recipe that you cook right now?
Yeah, on NewYorkTimesCooking.com, I like this sweet potato red lentil curry. It's really good. I'm not a vegetarian or anything, but like I try not to eat too much meat, and so I really like it because it's really filling and it feels really healthy, and I feel really good the next day.
Protein from the lentils.
Was there a scene you or your co-stars had to improv while on Stranger Things that did make it into the show?
Tons of Gabe and Joe stuff is improvised and makes it tons and tons and tons. In fact, there are often like little things like, all right, and then they'll just make stuff up, and then we'll do this, and then they'll make stuff up, and then we'll do that. They are incredible at improvising with each other. It's so funny. And then I had a thing in season 4 that I started doing, because we shot season 4 for so long, because we shot for a while, then there was the pandemic, and then we shot for a long time, and the pandemic also really slowed it down. So I started playing a game with myself again, where I was like just trying to sneak in as many weird things as humanly possible. That was kind of my main goal. So it was like every day I need to figure out something weird to do. And I had a friend who like was just the best at being weird, and he would always do things and he would go, pretty creepy, pretty freaky. You know, it's just this little thing. So I just would try to say that in as many scenes as possible, hoping one of them would make it in. I was just trying to think of funny little weird, like doing a weird voice or like trying something different. Like, I don't know, I just would do weird stuff near the end of season 4. So if you ever rewatch it and notice any slightly odd moments, being like, I can't believe she made that decision. It was to keep herself awake.
If you were trapped by Vecna, what song would you choose to free you?
Ooh.
Good question, person.
Thank you, person.
The first thing that popped in my head is Landslide.
Good one!
Because I've known it since I was a kid. It's like my mom's favorite song. It's extremely sentimental, and I feel like an important part of in my head how the music magic works is it just needs to like bring you back to yourself, right? It needs to like re-root you to who you are, which is like remembering people you love, remembering moments you've enjoyed, like feeling your own heartbeat, you know? And so that's not a song I listen to that much, but it's a song that's been playing throughout my whole life, as I imagine a lot of you do. So that mentions Landslide.
If you've taken something from set, what's the favorite thing that you've taken?
You can't take anything until we wrap the end of season 5, because everything might need to come back into play. Like you never know if they're going to need, for some reason they'll need my Scoops Ahoy hat, and so I can't take it yet because what if they need it and it still belongs to them? But when we finally wrap the whole show, then hopefully a shopping spree will begin, and I will try to get my hat. And I'll try to get some of the beautiful little figurines. I mean, the art department on the show is so amazing. They do such incredible work. And so I don't know, I'll try to, trick or treat, take as much as I can get. But yeah, right now I don't have anything except my bed, the backs of my chairs for every season.
Is there like one hot ticketed item that you're like, have your eyes on for us to this wrap? It's like, boink, mine.
Yes, it's from this season. And if I were to tell you exactly what it was, it would be a spoiler, but I'll tell you it's like a tiny painted figurine.
Aww.
Because we did mention and talk about your work in a project involving Flannery O'Connor, this question is, what is your favorite short story or novel?
Ever? Favorite short story or novel? Well, my favorite series is The Golden Compass. Golden Compass and the Wrinkle in Time series, they kind of duke it out, and I'm sure that all of you could build like a profile on my personality based on those choices. But those are my favorite series. And so I'm really dyslexic. I talk about it a lot. It's embarrassing. But so it took me a while to like read the books that everyone else was reading. Like I didn't really read Golden Compass and like Harry Potter until like late high school because I was kind of intimidated by the other kids who were reading when I was younger and I couldn't read. So all of these young adult books hold such a special place in my heart. Like I've read a lot of grown-up books, but if we're talking favorites, like Walk to the Moons by Sherman Creech is one of my favorite books. If you haven't read it, you should. And yeah, like a series of Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Van Basil Frankenweiler. Series of Unfortunate Events. Those are huge favorites of mine. But look, I have read Moby Dick, but it doesn't really compete with Walk to the Moons, you know?
And so we are coming toward the end of this panel, and so we're going to start wrapping up a bit. And so this might be the last question.
Cool.
And you've mentioned about how they write for you with the character of Robin. And so this question asks, you talked about how you helped shape Robin. Was there a time that Robin shaped and inspired you?
That time is every day and still going. There have been multiple times where I've had odd, like, epiphanies because of Robin and different kind of complicated, confusing feelings about what, about kind of, I resisted her for a period of time in my life. I then like deeply welcomed her in. I felt like extremely identified with her in a period of time, and then like I've kind of now, I think, found the parts of her that are like me and the parts of me that are different, and that's okay, I versus kind of getting off the boomerang. When you play a character like this where you shoot for so long, you've done it for so many years, they become like a part of you in a way, and figuring out who you are, at the same time, especially while, when you're in such a developmental period of time in your life, I don't think that it probably feels the same way if you're an adult doing a TV show, but if you're young and it's like, 19 to 26 is a pretty, impressionable time where you figure a lot of stuff about yourself out. And Robin has definitely been my friend through all of that. I thought you were going to ask me, is a hot dog a sandwich? Which is a question that I saw on the board that I really liked.
I think it's a important question to answer. Is it? What would you say?
Who thinks a hot dog is a sandwich? Who thinks a hot dog is not a sandwich? A hot dog is not a sandwich.
We have time for about one more. So I have one right here, which is, Wes Anderson is known for having a super distinct style. How did that impact his directing, and did it change your process when preparing for Asteroids?
When I first arrived, I had about 1 day's notice that I was casting this part. I think I was replacing somebody who dropped out. So I had 1 day's notice, and I got on a plane, and I flew there, and I was very nervous, very excited. And a lot of cast members came up to me and were telling me, I think trying to comfort me, being like, hey, just so you know, like, don't worry, it'll be fine. If he makes you do 100 takes, don't worry, he makes everyone do 100 takes, and really try to be word perfect. Like, he's really a stickler, he's really intense. Like, don't feel like you're doing a bad job. He's like so intense. And then I got there, and I was like off book. I got off book on the plane, and I got there, I went to my first scene, and I don't know, I'm the kind of person who feels like liberated by structure. Like I love sonnet form and like different poetic forms, because then you can kind of play within them, and I feel like I have more freedom there. And so like basically this main structure of what it's like to work with Wes is like you start here, and then you must get to here, and then you must stand here in front of this thing, and you have freedom with your arms, and then you're going to stand here and make a lot of decisions within that movement, right? Like, well, how are we going to walk there? Like slow and graceful, or like fast and pointed, And so I think some people feel constrained by how that. I felt really liberated by the clarity of what I was being asked to do, and the freedom that I had within it to make all kinds of decisions. So I just loved it, and we only did like 3 takes. So.